Greetings. I'm Thomas Caldwell of the Aurelian Column, and this is the Book Report. Some of you have contacted me and asked for advice, books, titles on ancient history. You notice that I do study alternative views of things, and that's always a more interesting place to explore. So, in response to that, I've come up with what I'm calling my Ancient History and Religion edition here, 3 books. And as we move into the holiday season, it's a great time to curl up and read some interesting stuff that's entertaining, as well as informative. The first book on the list is called The Earth Chronicles Handbook, a comprehensive guide to the 7 books of the Earth Chronicles, by Zecharia Sitchin. He's gotten to be pretty well known in the last several decades. The man passed away in 2010. I got to meet him in 2009 at a book fair in New York, and this particular copy that I'm referring to, he actually signed for me, which was quite a treat. Now, for those of you who aren't aware of this man and his work, in 1976 he came up with a book called The 12th Planet, referring to ancient Sumerian text interpretation about human beings basically having once been ruled over, for want of a better word, extraterrestrials that came here to look for resources. All of that stuff you've seen in Hollywood that's fiction, people that are out to promote particular theories of ancient astronauts that you see on documentaries on TV that are so poorly put together, all of that came from him. He's the source of all that. The only difference is that this guy really did his homework, at least it appears he did. He comes from that part of the world. He spent time in studying ancient Sumerian tablets. He's a controversial figure, and over the decades he's gotten more controversial. And a lot of people have taken his stuff and really just run into strange directions with it. The TV show Stargate from some years ago was indirectly a result of all this stuff. So you got to look into this and, of course, judge for yourself. Mainstream academia hated him. Millions of other people thought that what he came up with was brilliant. But still, all 7 of these books are a plod, to put it mildly. They are very thick, they are very detailed, references here and there, vocabulary that you have to keep track of, and as a result, very few people bother to read them. That's the case with so many things like this. People think, oh, I think Zecharia Sitchin is wonderful, but they've never read any of his books. We've got to do something about that. So what he apparently decided was, back in the day, put together a guidebook and use this as a reference as you go through all of his works. And each one of his books is pretty thick, so you're talking about a few years' worth of reading there, unless you sit down and do it all at once, which would take you a couple of months. It's a very, very nice, not too thick reference guide. And it puts everything into perspective, so you can kind of get a digest of what he's thinking about and where he's coming from just by reading this. I would strongly recommend those of you who want to delve into this and not just look at the cheap documentaries on YouTube that are second, third, fourth-hand information, but to read the Earth Chronicles. I read the first one when I was in high school. He came up with this in the 70s, and I read them subsequently after that. I tend to think there's a lot to them myself, but again, unless you have absolutely solid evidence of this, you really don't have it there. When I was talking to him in 2009, we were discussing the war in the Middle East, and he didn't want to talk about that. I said, is there anything going on there, like the Americans are right now literally in Babylon where this is supposed to have taken place? And he felt very uncomfortable when I asked him that. And I didn't push, but, well, who knows? Again, the book is The Earth Chronicles Handbook, a comprehensive guide to the 7 books of the Earth Chronicles by Zecharia Sitchin. It was published by Bear and Company in 2009. Up on Amazon I checked, and apparently there's a newer version of it, but I don't know anything about that. This one came out while he was still alive. Now, the next book of these three is one that is long out of print and not that easy to find. It's not impossible, but it's not that easy to find, and it's a real treat. It's called Egyptian Mysteries, An Account of an Initiation. It's an English translation from a Dutch translation that supposedly came from, well, a French translation or an Egyptian translation, not really sure. And that book originally came out in 1981. The edition I'm referring to was put out by Samuel Weiser in 1988. Now, this book came out in the midst of what was called the New Age movement, which was, well, more silly than anything else. It was what people do when they don't have much spirituality in their life and have a lot of disposable income. But it is a gem of a book. It was supposedly penned by a philosopher of the Alexandrian school named Iamblichus. Iamblichus is the way I was always pronouncing it, and he was from Syria, and he was around in the 4th century A.D., and he's an interesting person, as are all ancient philosophers, if you get into them. But this book does ring true in many ways. If it was a fake, it was a brilliant fake. And it supposedly originated in the time in Egypt before the pharaohs. Before the pharaohs were around, Egypt was run by a priesthood, it was believed. It's a fascinating little book. It'll put your head into some strange spaces, but it's about an initiation into a mystery school, which Iamblichus was, by all accounts. Again, the book is Egyptian Mysteries, An Account of an Initiation. It was published by Samuel Weiser in 1988. The English translator is not mentioned in the book for some reason. If you look for it, it has a green border on the cover and a picture of the Egyptian Book of the Dead, actually the Scroll of Ani, as the central illustration. Just check it out. It's a nice thing to have in your library, and I suspect that it's going to go up in value. I was always amazed why it wasn't reprinted, because it was so popular. Now, the third book I'm going to recommend is one that I think is quite profound and something that anyone of the Christian tradition should have in their library, and that's called the Gnostic Bible. And it was published by Shambhala in 2003. This is basically quality translations of something called the Nag Hammadi findings, the Nag Hammadi scrolls. Now, everyone's heard of the Dead Sea Scrolls. They came out, well, they've never really come out, but they were discovered 1946-47, and there were subsequent archaeological digs near the Dead Sea in Israel, which at that time was Palestine. The thing about the Nag Hammadi is they were found a year earlier in Egypt. And to put a simple label on it, these are the outtakes of one of the several Bible versions out now. And there are different Bibles, by the way. There's not one. And it seems that every year there's a new version of it that comes out. But this is a combination of translations of some of the outtakes, the Book of Thomas, the Book of Mary, the Book of Pilate. There's a lot of stuff that was left out when they were putting the Bible together at the Council of Nicaea. The Bible was put together by the Emperor of Rome, Constantine, and it was put together to be a manual for his state religion of the empire. But there was a lot of stuff going on at the time. You see, Christianity was a far larger movement. It was a very big consciousness shift at the time. There was a lot of mystical teachings going on around then. It was really fascinating. And this is a massive book. And in some cases, it'll show you exactly how profound the religious traditions of those times are, but it'll also, frankly, show you how some Christian teachings have gone so far off the reservation, you wonder how they got there. This book was edited by Willis Barstone and Marvin Meyer. They were quite accomplished scholars, and they really did know their stuff. Now, there's been other translations of the Nag Hammadi works over the decades. This is the best one. I have a hardback edition. I don't think that's available anymore. They do have softcover, of course, and probably on Kindle and a few others. I'd have to go check that. But if you can get the hardcover, it's really nice to have. Again, it's called the Gnostic Bible. Now, just to also clarify, the word Gnostic comes from the Greek word gnosis, which means knowledge. In other words, these are spiritual teachings not designed to be used as the tool for priesthoods. They were designed to enlighten the average person, basically cut out the middleman, which if you ever notice, there's always a problem when you have a priesthood between the people and the divinity they're supposed to be dealing with. Wonder why that is. This is one of my favorite books. If I ever feel a little bit spiritual, I guess you'd call it, I like to just randomly grab at it. But I did sit down and read it from beginning to end when I first got it, and I found it quite mesmerizing. So there you have 3 books to deal with. The Earth Chronicles Handbook by Zachariah Sitchin. That is Bear & Company 2009, still available. Egyptian Mysteries, An Account of an Initiation. The translation into English published by Samuel Weiser in 1988. Not easy to find, but it is findable. And the Gnostic Bible, edited by Willis Barstone and Marvin Meyer, published by Shambhala in 2003. There are 3 good books there to read and reference, and I hope you enjoy them. That's it for today. If you appreciate my work, please like, subscribe, share, and consider a paid subscription. That would be very much appreciated. If you wish to reach me, I can be reached at feedback@aureliancolumn.com. That's feedback@aureliancolumn.com. This podcast originates on Substack, aureliancolumn.substack.com, and it can be accessed on various locations, including Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. Until we meet again, be good, be safe, be vigilant, and remember, keep reading. Good day.